All right, I'm going to call the special meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber, which has been duly noticed in 2 places, including the city's website in accordance with the requirements of RSA 91A. Tonight, the prayer will be offered by City Clerk Dan Healy, and Alderman Jetty will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Almighty God, we have the high honor and the serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance, please.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderwoman Timmons. Alderman Moran. Alderman Thibodeau.
Here.
Alderman Govea.
Here.
Alderman Lopez. Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
Alderman Clemens. Alderman Senate.
Here.
Alderman Jetty.
Here.
Alderman Tebow.
Here.
Alderman Clee. Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Wilshire.
Here.
10 present, 5 absent.
Thank you. Also joining us this evening is Corporation Counsel Steve Bolton. Communications.
Communication has been received from President Laurie Wilshire, Board of Aldermen, regarding calling a special Board of Aldermen meeting on March 25th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. relative to wastewater rates.
There being no objection, I'll accept the communication and place it on file. So tonight we're having a second presentation. This time it's on wastewater rates, and I'd like to recognize Public Works Director Lisa Photo.
Thank you, Alderman Wilshire. Again, for the record, Lisa Photo, Director of Public Works. Joining me tonight is David Boucher, Superintendent of Wastewater, Noel Osborne, Wastewater Operations Supervisor, and our consultants from Hazen and Sawyer, Frank Ayotte and Olivia August. We're here this evening to provide you with an overview of where we see wastewater rates trending in fiscal year 27 and 28. We're not seeking any approvals tonight. We anticipate submitting a resolution for rate increases probably in the fall, late fall, early winter. Please note that the rates in this presentation could change due to permit or operational requirements. David and Noel will give you some information on our capital projects and permits, and Olivia and Frank will discuss our proposed rates. Thank you for this opportunity, and we'll be happy to entertain questions after the presentation. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to David Boucher.
Good evening. Dave Boucher, Wastewater Superintendent. If I do this right here. I'll start off with giving a brief overview of the wastewater facility, and I'll go over some capital projects. So the wastewater facility sits off Sawmill Road on 28 acres. It collects, treats wastewater, and our goal is to deliver clean, clear water to the Merrimack River. We service approximately 89,000 residents in Nashua. We also treat Hudson's sewer and also parts of Merrimack and some of Tingsboro. The wastewater facility, the main facility, has a design flow of 16 million gallons per day. Right now we're seeing an average flow of 12 million gallons per day. When there's a major storm, we have a second facility on site, our wet weather facility. This facility activates, and we can treat up to 110 million gallons per day as peak flow. Also annually, we treat about 800,000 gallons of septage. This septage is from the city of Nashua and Hudson residents. Also out in our collection system, this is everything outside of the gates of the wastewater treatment facility. We maintain over 400 miles of collection system. underground pipes which carry sanitary sewer, storm water, and some of its combined piping. We also maintain 12 pump stations in the system, 9 combined sewer overflow structures, and 8 siphon chambers. Some of our projects out in the collection system from the past and current, on the left-hand side, that's our screening and disinfection facility, which is located off of Bridge Street. This facility inside the building has chemical injection equipment. This is also combined with a 1 million-gallon underground storage tank. So when there's heavy flows and the interceptor in that area fills up, the flows flow into the 1 million-gallon tank, providing screening and disinfection before discharging. The building on the right, that's one of our pump stations that was recently updated. That's off Blackstone Drive. All of our pump stations were updated. We should end this year with complete that project. This building in particular has an emergency generator on the right-hand side, and the left-hand doors is the pumps. All of the facilities receive new pumps, controls, and some receive buildings like this. At the wastewater facility, we've had some upgrades in the past. Our headworks upgrade included, the picture to the far left is a mechanical bar screen. These screens actually this picture doesn't do it justice, but it actually goes down 2 stories. Its purpose, using rakes, screens, and chains, pulls heavy material out of the wastewater to protect our equipment downstream, brings it to ground level for disposal. Our energy recovery upgrade, the picture in the middle, that was involved in installing 2 Milton Cat generators. These generators run off of methane gas. The methane is a byproduct of our digestion process, so it's a free fuel for those generators. In turn, the heat is recovered from the generators, and it's used to heat our digester egg on site, the first picture we had, the big green egg. So there's some energy savings there. The water booster building, the picture to the far right, we have a lot of processes that use higher water pressure than the city can provide. In the past, all these pumps were in an underground vault. It was a corrosive environment. Everything was brought above ground in a precast building, easier to maintain. And the wet weather facility screen replacement was similar to the picture to the far left. It was a replacement of the mechanical bar screens in our wet weather facility. Some current projects we have, we're looking at building a vehicle storage garage. Currently, there is no vehicle garage at the wastewater facility. In the picture, we have a lot of expensive assets at the facility. 2 in the picture, they're vac trucks. They're the trucks we use to clean the sewer lines, especially in the case of emergencies. These trucks are fitted with water tanks. Currently, in the wintertime, we have to drain the tanks every day, blow out the hoses so it doesn't freeze. But technically, they should have water on them at all times in case of an emergency. We also have other vehicles that have sensitive equipment on it. We have a camera truck that has cameras and computers on board, and a lot of trucks with electronic components on the outside. The picture to the right, the Class A biosolids project, is something we're working on. We're in the design phase. So right now, we produce a Class B biosolid. Biosolids is when we take sludge and we process it into beneficial reuse. That product gets spread on permitted lands throughout New Hampshire. With new regulations, there are limiting places where we can spread it. The cost of trucking has gone up. Our cost to dispose of it has doubled. So we're looking at Class A. Right now, we're the last Class B producing facility in New Hampshire. So with new regulations coming, might limit even more where we can put it. So by going Class A, in the picture to the right, that is a pilot test of a drying unit. You take a Class B product and further dry it, and it creates a Class A biosolid. This reduces the volume, reduces the weight, and also opens up other avenues for us to dispose of it, also reducing the cost in shipping. Other current projects, we have a dry well valve and pipe replacement project. Should be done this year. In the picture to the right, you see there's large pipes being replaced in our main building. This is a large project. Those are the original pipes being replaced were fatigued worn out, so we're putting in new piping. This is the piping that takes in the wastewater up to 50 million gallons and brings it from the lowest point in the city to our processes, ground level. The biggest part of this project is we had to divert the flow, bypass it around this building in order to do this project, so it's a pretty large project. Phase 1 upgrades, that's just a series of projects throughout the facility. Just maintain the existing infrastructure, replacing large gates throughout the facility. This also requires bypassing. We got tank repairs throughout the facility, 2 large flow meters that are in underground vaults that are being replaced, chemical pumps through the facility, some stormwater improvement work. We have areas that flood near these underground vaults with our flow meter that we need to have a holding area. Also, pump building improvements. We have a 3-story pump building that needs some care. It's a pretty corrosive environment underground. And from here, I'll turn it over to Noelle Osborne, the operations supervisor.
Good evening. Noelle Osborne, Operations Supervisor, Wastewater. A lot of the projects that the superintendent was talking about are regulatory driven. So this slide is intended to show you the different permits that the wastewater facility currently holds. We're regulated on every aspect of the things that we do, from the water that we treat and discharge into the Merrimack River to those biosolids for that beneficial reuse. We're required to have generators on site in case we lose power. We need to maintain functionality. So we are permitted for the emissions that those generators put out. Those are the air permits. We're required to have fuel on site to provide fuel for those generators. That's the AST, UST, above ground storage and underground storage tank. We are required to, we have regulations on stormwater. We are considered an industrial storm site. So we have outfalls, we have catch basins and outfalls. So all of that's regulated, as well as our hazardous waste. This next slide is the governing documents. Within those permits that I referenced on the previous slide, there are governing documents that are specific to the city of Nashua. We have these written for us, usually by a consultant, and they have different metrics that we are required to meet. The collection system, O&M, you can see on the slide, it refers you back to the actual permit that these are required in. I'm not going to go through each one of them unless you really want me to. They're a lot of fun, they're a lot of reading, there are a lot of regulations that we have to maintain, and that drives a lot of those projects. From here, I'm going to turn it over to Frank Ayotte from Hazen and Sawyer.
So I'm not sure we have the presentation queued up for the financial rate model, but I do have my colleague Olivia August on Zoom. Could she share her screen? Is that possible? Great. Once again, my name is Frank Ayotte. I'm with the engineering firm of Hazen and Sawyer, the project manager for the Nashua Wastewater Rate Study update. Some of you may know that we undertook this project almost 5 years ago after relatively flat increases, sewer rate increases that the city overtook the previous 15 years. And to fund and maintain wastewater capital improvement projects that are skyrocketing in costs. Since 2020, we've had several double-digit increases. In tonight's presentation, we're looking to recommend increases for 2027 and 2028 that are much more modest, and that's due to the pre-planning of Public Works, Sewer Department, and Engineering, and building up the fund balance as we're going to present tonight. So with that, Olivia, if you go to the agenda. So this is a little bit of a recap. Some of you may have seen some of this before. First, we'll go over the sewer rate model, its purpose and function, the data sources that we use to populate the model. That includes debt service, expenses, operations, income, and revenue. projected wastewater expenses and capital projects that we've scheduled into the rate model itself, because it's a dynamic rate model. And finally, our recommendations for 2027 and 2028, proposed increases for the wastewater rates. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to our senior principal engineer and our financial analyst, Olivia August. Thank you. I'll be here to answer any questions too following the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Frank. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. So as Frank said, what we worked on was a financial model. The background and purpose really is to make sure that we can help work with NASHA to inform equitable, fiscally responsible, and defensible rates. And as Frank mentioned, this was built using historical usage and billing data, as well as several sources of financial information, which I'll cover in the next slide. Additionally, we want to make sure that these rates not only match what historical needs are, but also what you're planning in the future. So kind of piggybacking off of David and Noel's presentation, all the programs and capital projects they're running need to be funded and financed as well. So incorporating those, any future loans and capital expenses were incorporated as well. So you'll see some visuals and graphics from our model. The model is based off of an Excel spreadsheet, which combines a lot of these financial sources and then uses Power BI to drive the visualizations and data model behind it. So the Excel is a living document, and as Frank said, this has been an ongoing effort. So each year we've updated it and worked with Lisa and others to review rates and make sure they match the needs projected. So to cover some of the data sources that were included, we looked at the usage data for the fiscal year of 2024, making sure that we had the most recent usage when looking at revenue as well and projecting what that might be in the future. We also looked at the actual revenue and expenses for fiscal year 24 and then the budgeted for fiscal year 25. We'll cover this in a little bit more detail, but as part of the model, we incorporated the ordinance sewer rate increases that are planned, already occurred and also planned for 2026, so we'll cover that. A big part of this is your 5-year capital plan, so that 2025 to 2030 capital requests, as David and Noel kind of walked through several of those projects that, and several more that are ongoing or to be completed. An important part of this is also understanding debt service, existing loans, and what those debt service requirements currently are and schedules look like moving forward, as well as understanding current operating and capital reserve fund balances. So we took those data sources, we compiled them to get a better picture at historical and projected expenses before we looked at revenue. So when we looked at projected expenses, you'll see here some stratification of colors. Those look at the different types of expenses. So that darkest color is your annual operating. That includes salary, labor, your regular maintenance and operational costs. That darker color is your cash funded capital. So any projects that were capital projects that were funded with that cash funded revenue. And then you have your current loans, so any existing loans and debt service payments you have, and then you'll see this lightest color start appearing in 2025 moving forward, and those are your future or your planned loans. So when we looked at those, we noticed that over the next 5 years, about a projected annual increase of 8% per year. So that was an understanding of where projected expenses are looking, and this is due to many factors. Inflation's a big one. Just planning ongoing projects, as Noel talked in programs Noel talked about, and then other projects as well. So pretty typical of what we've seen elsewhere. Some of these expenses include some of the projects you heard about earlier tonight. Some others, phase 1, wastewater treatment plant upgrades is a large project. There's ongoing consent decree operational expenditures, inflow and infiltration program expenses, the annual stormwater management and abatement, Merrimack River levee rehabilitation, CS flooding program, and costs associated. There was a fire alarm system upgrade, annual gate and valve replacement, and some drywall upgrades just to point out a few of the capital projects that are included in these projected expenses, ongoing and planned. So then we looked at the rates, and so as Frank talked about, some of the historical rates, you can see in that graphic at the bottom, there was no increase in 2023, and as a result, we had a steeper increase in 2024 of 15%, and then earlier this year there was a 10%. And as we're looking at how revenue is comparing to its projected expenses, we're seeing a decrease in the need for a very large increase. So what we're proposing in the ordinance's plan for 2026 is a 10%. And based on the current values we have for projected expenses and projected revenue, our recommendation is that starting in 2027, a 6% increase would be sufficient for, as Frank discussed earlier, fund reserve requirements, operating expenses, and I'll show some graphs of what that looks like as well. And so right now, we're also recommending the year after a 6%, getting closer to that cost of the cost of living, the annual increase. But as Lisa mentioned earlier, if there's large changes to regulations or requirements that need for 6% or something could change as well. So an important part of when recommending an increase is understanding the impact to Nashua residents. So what we look at is an average residential monthly bill. So looking at average usage, typically a household uses around 5 CCF per month, which is approximately 4,000, 5,000 gallons per month. So that helps kind of equate a little bit. And then your typical household is using a 5/8 inch meter, the smallest meter size, larger for a larger commercial or industrial building. But that's pretty much your typical usage and meter size, and therefore we looked at rates for Nashua at that average residential, and then we also compared it to some neighboring utilities to see where current rates for Nashua and planned rates for Nashua compare to some of your neighboring utilities. So as of 2024, you can see this is the comparison since final 2025 rates are still changing. So we wanted to have a baseline 2024 or after 24 rates across the board. So you can see Nashua is there in red with that $35.65. With the increase in January, it went up to $39.20, and you can see based on the 2026 plan 10% and 2027 and 2028 plan 6%, those will increase by a few dollars each year, but still stay well within kind of some of the neighboring utilities you see. On the left side, Concord's at $38 in 2024, Keene at $48, and Portsmouth much higher, around $91, $92 per month for an average residential user. And something else we wanted to point out was that although Nashua at the moment is slightly above the Manchester average residential rate of 32, Manchester actually recently approved a 19% annual increase each year between 2025 through 2028. I believe after that, it might be around a 14% in 2029. So very significant increase, which will result in a monthly bill in 2028 of $65, more than double their current rate. $65.34, where Nashua's is projected to be around $48.48. So the goal of some of this financial planning and rate study is to avoid having to do those large rate increases and minimize the impact to Nashua residents. Another metric we like to look at to make sure these rates are equitable and affordable is affordability metrics. The EPA recommends that the cost of sewer services remain below 2% of your median household income. So we checked for both median and lowest quintile to make sure that sewer services remain affordable. So the impact of this rate increase, 6% we're seeing, is one, right here, a big factor we look at is making sure that your fund balance remains healthy. And so that red line you see at the top is the projected fund balance versus the green bars at the bottom are the minimum fund balance we want to make sure we're retaining. So that minimum fund balance is actually composed of 3 components. The first being 4 months of annual operating expenses. We want to make sure in the balance we have, if anything were to go awry, we have at least 4 months of operating expenses we can pull from those fund balance reserves. The second is capital expenses, being able to cover about 25% of your annual capital expenses. And then the third is making sure you can fund a full year of debt service requirements. So these are the components we look at, making sure your fund balance goal is conservative and has all those components built in. And what we're projecting now is that the fund balance is projected to remain well above that goal with the 6%. A second factor we look at is net revenue. So this is looking at the difference between your expenses and revenue, making sure that on an annual basis your cash flow is positive, and we're not relying on reserves or fund balance as a baseline. So what you can see here is total revenue in navy. That grayish color is your net operating income. So that's your total revenue minus just operating expenses. But what I really think is important to focus on is the yellow, and that is total revenue minus total expenses. So this will include capital, operating, as well as debt service. And we want to make sure this is greater than 0 so that you're actually building on your fund balance year to year and you're not pulling from those reserves. So based on our current projections, we're seeing that with these recommended future rate increases for 2027, 2028, we're maintaining a positive net revenue through 2030. And I think that's all we have today on the rate increases, but any thoughts, comments, or questions? I really appreciate all of your time today.
Thank you, Olivia.
Anyone have questions? Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. I have a few questions. In the opening comments, it was mentioned that both Merrimack and Tingsboro use our facility to treat their wastewater. Are we able to find out how much that adds to our expense and how much do they add to the revenue of the wastewater plant?
Yeah, we can find out. The areas are small, like Tingsboro is the mall area. It's very small. And South Merrimack, the Penchuck Square. But we do have some of the commercial industry over there.
Okay.
So we could find out what that contributes.
I just didn't know if it was significant or not.
No.
No.
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Could I have a follow-up?
Alderman Sullivan.
This goes more to the financial part of it. I was struck at the amount of the fund balance. While I think it's pretty healthy, considering what goes into that 4 months of OpEx and whatnot. Is there guidance for keeping a fund balance that high? Because she, I forget her name. I'm sorry.
Olivia.
Olivia had mentioned a catastrophic event. I mean, I guess that would mean that the 89,000 people wouldn't pay their bill for 4 months or something like that. So.
Or a pandemic.
Yeah, or that.
I mean, really. Yes, there are metrics. So when we actually have developed a slide on the operating income and the 1-year debt service, that is a metric we obtained from federal documents. So that was our baseline. And as you can see from this slide, that we're operating somewhere, the minimum metric should be the top of the light green, should be your minimum fund balance. So in pre-planning the last 5 years with rate increases the way we have and sequencing the projects correctly in order of importance and certainly the size of these projects, you see that the fund balance is really in the red now. See, that's the red line. So there's even much more than that minimum metric that's in the fund balance, which is healthy. When we develop the rate model, we have essentially all these projects that are basically scheduled within the rate model with projected costs. If one of those projects were to become more pressing in nature, and yet it might be scheduled further down the road, but it's a high cost, then you have to move that project maybe into the next year, right? And how that might affect where you might be in that fund balance. It's good to be just somewhere between the top of that green and the red. You know, you're operating there, that's over the minimum. So it gives you a cushion.
Does the line ever, I mean, you know, does it follow that arc there, or does it sometimes vary?
So what we do is, since we're able to pre-plan the rate increases and track the expenses like we do, generally this will maintain a steady tack, okay, in the same direction and avoid the peaks and valleys that we're talking about,
Okay, all right. Thank you.
okay?
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Alderman Kelly.
Thank you. Actually, this is the slide that I had a question on. So, under the goals here, it says that the capital expenses goal is to meet 25%. Is that typical? Or is that something that we set? Like, where did that 25% come from?
Yeah, that comes from federal guidelines on maintaining wastewater fund. And I can get the correct citation and forward it along to the board.
And then just a logistical follow-up, if I could. So I see debt service below that. Is this a reserve, or is this based on current projects that are in queue?
So this is based on your current debt service that's in the rate model. Is that correct, Olivia?
That's correct. So you'll see it slightly increases over time as your planned debt service increases.
Yeah.
I'm sorry if I was unclear. I was asking about the 25% in capital expenses. Is that in addition to debt service based on projects we have, or reserve?
Olivia, can you answer that? Yeah.
So that is, what we're looking at here is cash funded capital, so that we're not double counting the debt service costs, but for your cash funded capital expenses, 25% of those, making sure you can retain that operating 4 months, and then for debt service, which might cover your remaining capital expenses, having a year of debt service based on what's projected.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Alderman Clemmons.
Thank you, and I apologize for my tardiness here to the meeting. I just want to thank you for coming in and providing this, and I want to thank the department for getting this done. I know that this has always been a goal that this board wanted, because we don't like the sudden, increases and things that come to us, what seems to be last minute, although I'm sure it's not. So this is nice to have this out for the next few years. It gives people, especially condos, the ability to plan. And I think it was an important goal that we wanted, and I just appreciate to see the fruits of that effort. So thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Dowd.
So these projects that are in your wastewater, they're in your CIC plans, so they're actually separate from other bonded projects because they're, I'm trying to think of the term, they come from this fund, not from regular tax revenue. So the money's collected under these fees pays for the projects that you'll be seeing coming forward from CIC, capital improvements.
I have a question probably for Superintendent Boucher, but I'm not sure exactly who. It was brought up about the fire alarm project upgrade. Can you tell us a little bit about that project and why it's so expensive?
Yes, Dave Boucher, wastewater superintendent. Unfortunately, that's the cost of this equipment. Like I showed you, that 28 acres is it's like 16 buildings that need fire alarm upgrades. Our building currently isn't up to code. We have to make all these buildings addressable. There's a lot of rooms and stuff in the buildings. But each building is going to require control panels. We are tying into the existing fiber, which reduces the cost. crazy to see because it's an expensive project, but basically that's the cost of the equipment. The installation cost also is up there, but it's just a large facility and a lot of separate buildings.
Okay. Thank you for your explanation. Alderman Tebow.
Thank you, Madam President. In the beginning, I thought Director Photo said that the 6% increase could change or somebody said it, maybe it wasn't Director Photo, but I just want to make sure, is that this isn't set in stone, or is it, it's not, right?
No,
So-
it's not.
Okay, so we
No,
shouldn't be
it's-
going, hey, by the way, you're going to go up 6%. It could, or it's going to be around there.
It could. I mean, since taking on the study from the beginning, and with the flat increases for over 15 years, I think it averaged 2% increase over 15 years. Those last 5 years, per se, built up your fund balance now to something healthy. But operating expenses, inflation, we don't know what the future holds. And we also don't know what pressing project might come into view where you might have to insert that project in your current CIP, right?
Yeah.
And how that might affect the overall rate model dynamics, right? So the goal was to build up the balance, let the rates catch up with the most pressing projects, schedule the projects in, and get a hold on those costs and hopefully go to something more steady, right?
Yeah.
No guarantees, but that's the goal, right? And then we always have the ability to push projects further out in the future to kind of temper that peak and valley if it's not an immediate need, right? So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Alderman Dowd?
And on the fire alarm panels, every time we touch a building, the fire alarm system has gone through a lot of technology upgrades. Makes it easier for the firemen to see exactly where the fire is and the communication. So, and the panels that, in all the school projects, we had to put in new panels and new actuators, and they're expensive. And they're required by National Fire Rescue.
Anyone else? Alderwoman Kelly.
Just a comment. I wanted to say that I appreciated the slow growth in the increase and hearing that other cities are, really going up and down. I think that this department, as well as other departments, have in the past couple of years really started to look at that and make sure that we're evening it out so it's not huge surprises in people's tax bills. So I appreciate the work.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, just one additional thing. When I heard this presentation a couple of months ago and I saw the thing on Portsmouth, and I checked into it, Portsmouth has a new facility they built, and they discharge into the ocean, so they have additional requirements that they have to meet, and that's why it's so expensive.
That makes sense.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your presentation this evening. Thank you, Director
Thank you very
Photo, and
much.
everyone who was here.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you, Olivia.
Thank you.
All right. Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make the motion that the March 25th, 2025 special meeting of the Board of Aldermen be adjourned.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:09 PM. I'll see you again in 21 minutes.
Eventually.